The forum, which brought together stakeholders in the field of environment and climate change adaptation, was geared towards the dissemination of the final findings of the food system adaptation. It is part of the activities of the Face Africa project funded by the Wellcome in London. The Face Africa project is led by the School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and Medical Research Council (MRC) unit in the Gambia, in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources.
And the main findings of the project are that when we looked at the Gambian food system, we found that the diets are actually lower in meat than a lot of other countries in the world, which means that their environmental footprints are lower, which is actually very good for the planet. But there are problems where, for example, people are not eating enough fruit and vegetables and enough whole grains, so their diets are not particularly good for their health, and also they're quite vulnerable to climate change. And this is because the Gambia has to import a lot of its food, particularly fruit and vegetables, because the crop yields are quite low and they're going to be affected a lot more by climate change in the future.
The agricultural sector in the Gambia is predominantly rain-fed and vulnerable to climate impact, significantly exposing the rural poor who are heavily dependent on it for their livelihoods in covering productivity, food security, poverty, malnutrition, and its health-related effects. The Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Environment, Ibrahima Jawara, said the ministry is open to novel and practical solutions for climate change adaptation, especially in the area of food system.
We are ready to create and enhance positive and sincere partnerships with national and international bodies, knowing the dynamics involved in environmental management and climate change. Indeed, it is a pleasure to acknowledge that the Face Africa project, as envisaged, is a sustainable part of that solution. The Gambia recently developed its long-term climate strategy for achieving low-carbon climate resilient development by 2050. It is officially called the Gambia's Long-Term Climate Neutral Development Strategy 2050, or LTS for short. I am pleased to inform you that the LTS was published on the website of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change on 23rd September 2022.
In the fight against climate change, the ministry says they have developed sustainable policies, including National Climate Change Policy, among others, to fill the gaps in food system adaptation.
The ministry has a national climate change policy from 2016. We're also working on a national climate change act currently, and the policy identifies the need to have data and research, because climate change is a scientific phenomenon, and to be able to react to it adequately, you need to have scientific data and then base your response on that data. So this has been a challenge. We all know, anybody who's done research in the country before knows that there are always some data gaps that exist. So that's what we're trying to plug.
According to reports, the estimated global gap of adaptation is large and widening. Adaptation costs in developing countries are expected to rise to about $340 billion a year by 2030 and up to $565 billion by 2050. However, some of the recommendations made by the Face Africa project team include achieving nutritional security through policies that promote healthy and sustainable diets, develop policy to enable farmers to access and utilize fertilizer, reduce water stress, and to adopt climate-smart agricultural practices, and to invest in sustainable agricultural development through climate-smart and productivity, enhancing the use of technologies. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Dada Chan.